This year, South Africa and China are celebrating 25 years of diplomatic relations. And with the BRICS summit on the horizon, a lot of diplomatic conversations are taking place. Some of it, and a lot of it actually taking place also in terms of investment and business. And that's why we're here at the Sandton Convention Center, where the China-South Africa New Energy Investment and Cooperation Conference is taking place. And we'll be finding out during the course of the day just what kind of opportunities lie in this particular sector.
Strengthening bilateral energy cooperation is an important consensus that has been reached by both President Xi Jinping and President Cyril Ramaphosa. In order to implement the consensus, help South Africa out of its energy crisis, and promote cooperation in new energy products between South Africa and China, we're all gathered here today to witness the China-South Africa New Energy Investment and Cooperation Conference. So in this first part of the conference, we'll begin with some opening remarks from representatives from both the CCCME, Invest South Africa, and CECITA. I'd like to begin by calling upon the Vice President of the CCCME, or the China Chamber of Commerce for Import and Export of Machinery and Electronic Products, Mr. Zhen Chao, for his opening remarks. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Zhen.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Sivelli, Your Excellency, Mr. Gerdan, Your Excellency, Mr. Ramaphosa, Your Excellency, my old friend, Ambassador Chen Xiaodong, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great pleasure to lead the delegation of Chinese entrepreneurs to Johannesburg and to hold the China-South Africa New Energy Investment and Cooperation Conference, jointly with the Investment South Africa and the South Africa-China Economic and Trade Association. This conference will play an important role in further deepening and facilitating China-South Africa cooperation in the field of new energy. First of all, on behalf of the China Chamber of Commerce for import and export of machinery and electronic products, CCCME, and all of our delegation members, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Ministry of Commerce of People's Republic of China, Chinese Embassy in South Africa, South Africa Embassy in China, the Department of Trade, Industry, and Competition of South Africa, and other government departments and business communities of the two countries. Many thanks for their thoughtful preparations and arrangements to this conference. Once again, I would like to extend my sincere welcome to the guests attending the conference. China and South Africa enjoy a long and solid friendship over time, and friendly and mutually beneficial cooperation has flourished between the two countries as well. Under the blueprint painted by the leaders of the two nations, the China-South Africa Comprehensive Strategic Partnership has been advanced to higher quality, wider areas, and deeper levels, and has grown into one of the most important and dynamic bilateral relations between China and the African countries and other developing countries. China has been South Africa's largest trading partner for 13 years, and South Africa is also one of the largest investment destinations for Chinese enterprises in Africa. The economic and trade exchanges between the two countries have become the highlight of China-South Africa practical cooperation. Africa is one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change. Therefore, developing clean energy is an inevitable choice to achieve sustainable development. China and Africa agreed to jointly initiate the concept of green and low-carbon starving to develop solar, wind power, and other renewable energy and promote green development. Currently, China has become the world's largest renewable energy market and the equipment manufacturer and a major force in the global green and low-carbon transition development. This time, I'm leading a delegation of nearly 50 business leaders from 24 enterprises to visit South Africa. The purpose of our visit is to expand cooperation in energy manufacturing, industry parks, and infrastructure sectors based on current close cooperation, and to inject continued impetus into South Africa's development on the one hand. On the other hand, building a platform for bilateral exchanges in the field of new energy and the whole industry chain is more important. Moreover, it will provide more opportunities for Chinese enterprises to have face-to-face exchanges with South Africa government departments and counterparts. To learn more about South Africa's new energy projects, preferential policies, and investment environment, and expand cooperation scope and explore new cooperative methods. Our delegation covers the whole segments of new energy industry, which include equipment, trade, investment, construction, and operation. We truly hope that today's conference would enable us opportunities to further enhance mutual understanding, explore business opportunities, facilitate cooperation, and fully release the developed potential of bilateral investment cooperation. CCCME is one of the largest national social organizations serving Chinese foreign trade and outward investment cooperation. With extensive industry fields, a complete industry chain, and a rich supply chain, our members are leading enterprises covering Chinese outward investment, overseas contract projects, mechanical and electronic foreign trade-related manufacturing, trade circulation, logistics, finance, and insurance, and so forth. By actively practicing the concept of green development, CCCME has set up a green and low-carbon committee and ESG working group, and established an information disclosure platform for carbon peaking and carbon neutrality goals, committed to providing one-step green service and solutions for the sustainable development of enterprises. Nothing is impossible with the same heart and mind. In the future, with the strong support from the governments of China and South Africa, and the thriving assistance of our enterprises, institutions, and friends, we are ready to work with our South Africa partners in good faith, making greater contributions not only to the in-depth development for the special friendly relations of our comradeship and brotherhood, but also to write a new chapter of win-win cooperation between China and South Africa. Last but not least, I wish this conference a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zhen Chao, Executive Vice President and Chairman of and Expert Committee of the China Chamber of Commerce for Import and Export of Machinery and Electronic Products. Just a brief introduction about his bio. I forgot to mention he's an expert on international engineering, economic and technological cooperation, also a former Deputy Director and First-Class Inspector at Director General level for the Department of Outward Investment and Economic Cooperation under the Ministry of Commerce for the People's Republic of China, amongst many other feats to date. So thank you, Mr. Zhen Chao, for those sentiments. Perhaps I can rehash a few of the key takeaway points that came out from that opening remark. You spoke about the friendly bilateral relations experienced by the two countries and perhaps looking at ways to deepen the cooperation. Also having mentioned that South Africa and China, or China rather, has been South Africa's largest trading partner for the past 13 years. And South Africa is also one of its largest investments for Chinese enterprises. I also got that you're leading a delegation of 50 business leaders that will come from 24 enterprises to visit South Africa. And the delegation will be covering new energy industry, including equipment, trade, investment, construction, and operation. And then last but not least, you're also, as CCCME, committed to practicing the concept of green development. So you are also looking at how to create sustainable enterprises at large. So with those key takeaway points, thank you again, Mr. Zhen Chao, for those sentiments. I'd like to, on this note, take a look at what else is up next. We're going to welcome the Head of Invest South Africa, Yunus Hussein, for his opening remarks. Allow me to just give a brief introduction. Mr. Hussein currently heads Invest South Africa, which is a division under the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa, and is responsible for both domestic and foreign direct inward investments. So his division facilitates structured engagements between the investor and government in facilitation, expansion, and aftercare handling of the investor through the investment lifecycle. So on that note, Mr. Hussein, do come to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning. Ni hao. Minister Gordon, Minister Ramakopa, Ambassador Cheng, Ambassador Kwele, Mr. Zheng of the CCCME, and Mr. Chen of the SACE-CTA, members of Parliament, members from MAFCOM and the Chinese Embassy. I'd like to really, at the outset, welcome you to this first inaugural China-South Africa New Energy Investment and Cooperation for Sustainable Development. When we were asked to partner the organizers, we had no haste because this sector, the energy sector, is strategic and it's important for our growth as well as the challenges that we are experiencing. Such is the relationship between South Africa and the People's Republic of China that the strategic alliance that we have built over the past 13 years, in which China is now the #1 trading partner to South Africa. It just shows that we have walked a long road. Now we need to walk the green road. And that is why we see China as the most strategic partner for us in this green road, in this development of green growth. And this particular conference today of energy lays that platform. And we wish you every success, and we wish that this becomes a standing event every year and grows. I might just say that to my good friend, Mr. Zheng, that 24 companies from China is too little. We can add a few zeros to that in the energy sector. Why? South Africa has challenges currently, and the ministers will outline that. But suffice to say that every challenge brings about opportunities, and there's been significant reform in the energy sector. Amongst those has been the removing of the cap for any size of investment, and that has allowed more than 100 projects today on the ground for more than 10,000 megawatts. That is the opportunity, as well as the new determination for the further 14,000 megawatts in solar, wind, and battery. Further to that, there's significant opportunities also in gas to power, in energy storage, and what we're doing with other government departments in launching an electric vehicle strategy for South Africa. So the mobility sector, the infrastructure for mobility is key, as well as the battery production area is key. And I'm glad to see that there are some companies that are in this delegation, and we would like to see more. So our role, as has been seen, that there are some significant companies from the People's Republic of China that have been participating in a number of projects. And we'd like to see much more of those. But our role is to provide you the advice on investment policy and the regulatory environment. It's fast changing, and I see it also in the crowd or in the audience today. The CEO of Eskom is also here. There's a number of RFPs, also recent ones in battery storage, in gas to power. And we have reformed a number of areas. And to advise you on the regulatory environment, how the regulatory environment is also changing quite fast, making it more efficient. One of the ones is also in the wheeling agreements that we've just, under Minister Ramakopa's leadership, we've been able to get solved. So we're moving quite fast. Many people will tell you that you have now come from China, from all parts of China. We are entering our winter period in South Africa. Many people will tell you at this part of the year we're supposed to be in total darkness, right? But the energy available factor is much better this year than it was last year. So that just tells you the kind of work that government is doing to improve the energy capacity, generation, and allowing private sector to flourish. And in allowing private sector to flourish, we also have our industrial policy agenda and aims to industrialize the country, to localize. So that is why we come in as Invest SA to advise you on partners in the country, to advise you on projects, to advise you on investment opportunities, and also to assist you in a number of special economic zones that we have in the country. We have 10 special economic zones. Some of these special economic zones are going to be focusing on green energy, on hydrogen, on fuel cell development, and the likes, on battery storage. And these are areas where we're going to localize. We're going to localize for a number of areas, and we're also going to localize because we have the great ambition to supply these components or products into the African continent. So we are providing that platform, and we'll be able to talk to you as companies coming to invest in our country, to partner either to do it yourself or to partner with our companies in South Africa on these strategic locations in the SEZs, to advise you on the incentive policies and to handhold you throughout this journey. So with those short words, we welcome this delegation. It is quite timely. Post-COVID, this is, I think, the largest delegation that has come from the People's Republic of China. And we would like to see many, many, many more because there's significant opportunity also in the infrastructure space that links up to into our energy program and other areas of infrastructure. So welcome to the delegation. We wish you well. We are going to be meeting a number of you, and we look forward to you announcing a number of investments in South Africa, and we look forward to you assisting us and supporting us in our push on our ambition in the current situation, but also to assist us in our green energy transition to make that faster, as well as to get greater green development and skills development in our country. Thank you very much. Sheshe.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein, for highlighting the importance of creating strategic partnerships for growth, obviously in relation to the challenges that have been experienced in South Africa, and also looking at the many opportunities available linking to the energy sector as well as other industries. Thank you, Mr. Hussein, for those sentiments. So on this, following that, I'd like to conclude the opening remarks portion of the program by welcoming the President of the South Africa-China Economic and Trade Association, SACITA, Mr. Long-Yan Chen. We know that Mr. Long-Yan Chen is the Chairman of the South Africa-China Economic and Trade Association and is also the Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of China Limited in Johannesburg branch. Before he came to South Africa in 2021, Mr. Chen worked in Europe for nearly 10 years and served as the Assistant General Manager and Deputy General Manager for both the Bank of China Limited in Luxembourg branch and the Bank of China in Europe. Mr. Chen, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very happy to welcome all of you to today's gathering and delighted to see so many people join us. I hope each one of you will have an inspiring day here with us. First and foremost, I would like to sincerely thank Invest South Africa and the China Chamber of Commerce for import and export of the machinery and the electronic products for co-hosting today's conference. I also want to express my gratitude to the Ministry of the Commerce of the People's Republic of China, Chinese Embassy in South Africa, South African Embassy in China, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition of South Africa, and other departments, as well as the business communities of our two great countries. Thank you for all your support, and thank you for joining us. China and South Africa enjoy the vibrant economic relations. Regular interactions between two countries takes place at various official levels, underscoring the significance attached by both sides to the shared economic and social ties. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change and the escalating demand for energy remain two of the most critical global challenges of our time, impacting us all, regardless of the geographical locations or economic status. In South Africa, the energy crisis has become a pressing issue, inflicting substantial repercussions on both societies and productions. The attracting global attentions, addressing this crisis requires not only individual efforts, but also international collaboration. It is crucial that we seize this moment to make a turning point in the energy crisis and turn our ambitions and pledges into actions. For the past 2 decades, the energy revolutions has been taking place in the world, and the heated race has begun more recently, with China at the head of the pack. This remarkable progress exemplifies China's dedication to addressing climate change. Intensified efforts have been made to promote low-carbon development, including effective mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions, proactive enhancement of climate resilience, and continuous improvement of the systems and mechanisms. It is more imperative for South Africa to accelerate its energy transformation. The technological upgrading of the existing coal power industry, the development of the new energy, and other comprehensive supporting measures are the 3 key aspects in our views. Among them, solar energy and wind power as representatives of the new energy hold significant importance. SACITA, South Africa-China Economic and Trade Association, serves its diverse membership of over 200 companies. An increasing number of the Chinese enterprises have actively engaged with South Africa's cooperation recently on various energy infrastructure projects. SACITA is determined to fulfill its role by providing platforms and generating opportunities to facilitate and promote further collaborations between companies in 2 countries. We will leverage the strengths of both sides in energy resources, technology, industries, markets, and financing, while strengthening existing cooperation and expanding collaboration in the field of the new and sustainable energy. Through collective endeavors, we aspire to make meaningful contribution in addressing energy challenges and preparing the transformation of the local socio-economic landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese people believe that when united as brothers, nothing is beyond our reach. We envision this conference as a platform for fruitful engagement where Chinese companies can engage in extensive communication and exchange with South African partners and government departments. By harnessing the strengths and expertise of all parties, we could pave the way for collaboration spanning all aspects of the energy value chain. Before finishing my words, I would like to once again thank the University of South Africa and CCCME for co-hosting today's exceptional gathering. May the conference that transpires here lead to valuable insights, innovative solutions, lasting partnership, and friendship. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long Jian Chen. Just some of the key points that I've taken away from your speech includes highlighting the vibrant relations between South Africa and China and perhaps also given the challenges faced the world over in relation to climate change, we obviously have to look at the energy crisis and the repercussions that are set to follow, aim to reduce carbon emissions, but also accelerate the energy transformation in South Africa through new energy, including the use of solar and green power. And again, also just as a CETA, providing platforms and opportunities for further cooperations and collaborations through across the value chain. So thank you for those sentiments again, the President of SACETA, Mr. Long John Chen. All right, so as we heard, this year the China-South Africa Comprehensive Strategic Partnership is facing important opportunities to expand and deepen. This comes as the two countries are poised to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the diplomatic relations. So China is also willing to provide South Africa with much needed energy, emergency support in the short term, deepening the electricity cooperation in the long term in accordance with some of the important consensus that had been reached by the two heads of state in strengthening the energy cooperation. So the point of convergence for China and African countries, as we know, is the forum for the China-Africa Cooperation, which is also known as FOCAC. And it serves as a multilateral framework that assists with both managing, monitoring, and evaluating an array of cooperative projects in Africa according to the country's historic, cultural, and economic conditions. So with all that said and done, this part of the program is now going to see some keynote speeches by some of our distinguished guests today. Ambassador of the Republic of South Africa to China, Ambassador Siyabonga Cwele, will be joining us via video call. Minister of the Department of Public Enterprises, Minister Pravin Gordhan, Minister in the Presidency responsible for electricity, Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, and Ambassador of the People's Republic of China in South Africa, Mr. Chen Xiaodong, are all going to be giving their addresses. So on that note, I'd like to welcome, first and foremost, Ambassador of the Republic of South Africa to China, Ambassador Siyabonga Cwele, joins us for his keynote address. Dr. Cwele holds an MBCHB Medical Policy from the University of KwaZulu-Natal and an MPhil in Economic Policy from the University of Stellenbosch. He's a politician, a long-standing member of the African National Congress, and of course has held many ministerial positions, also having served as the Minister of Home Affairs between 2018 and 2019. Mr. Cwele will be joining us via Zoom from Beijing, China. On that note, let's welcome him.
Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency Ambassador Chen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the beautiful Chinese city of Weihai in Shandong Province. Thank you to the co-hosts, the Invest South Africa, SACETA Chairman Mr. Shen Longjian, and the China Chamber of Commerce for Import and Export of Machinery and Electronic Products for inviting me to the inaugural conference on the new energy investment and cooperation in Johannesburg. This initiative comes at an opportune time when the South African government is expediting the implementation of the comprehensive measures to address the current electricity shortfall and looking for reliable partners from friendly countries. 2023 marks the 25th anniversary of friendly relations between South Africa and the is underpinned by the current 10-year implementation plan 2020-2029. This partnership is anchored by the Binational Commission, the Strategic Dialogue, Joint Working Group, and the high-level people-to-people exchange mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, our leaders maintain constant communication on important bilateral and global matters to ensure a peaceful and prosperous future for all the peoples of the world. They described our ties as a relationship of mutual trust and a relationship of comrades and friends. Their consensus continues to guide us to explore new and innovative ways of strengthening our relations for mutual benefit of our two great nations. Ladies and gentlemen, in November last year, on the sidelines of the Bali G20 summit, our leaders held the first face-to-face meeting after the COVID-19 pandemic and reached a consensus on a number of important issues, including green development, digital economy, just energy transition, technology exchange, and skills for the future. His Excellency President Xi Jinping supported the South African BRICS chairship, the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, and emphasized that China will support Chinese enterprises investing and doing business in South Africa and expand Chinese import of quality products from South Africa. Under the guidance of our leaders, the political trust has deepened and we enjoy mutual support on issues of each other's core interest. On the 14th of February this year, President Ramaphosa met the Chinese Vice Premier Sun Chunlan, who was leading the Chinese delegation to the third South African-China high-level people-to-people exchange mechanism in Cape Town. On the 6th of May, Deputy Minister Mashego Dlamini led the South African delegation to meet the Vice Ministers of MOFA and MOFCOM for the strategic dialogue and joint working group meetings in Beijing. The economic relations between South Africa and China grew tremendously in the past 10 years. Since 2009, China has been the largest trading partner of South Africa, and likewise, since 2010, South Africa has been the largest trading partner of China from the African continent. Our trade in goods and services were a mere 1.4 billion 25 years ago and has grown to 56.7 billion in 2022. The investment by the Chinese companies increased to 256 billion US dollars. There are more than 200 significant Chinese companies that are successfully investing in diverse sectors of our economy, including finance, energy, mining, telecoms, automotive, construction, retail, etc. Our embassy in Beijing and our consular offices in Shanghai and Hong Kong have been encouraging and guiding Chinese enterprises to continue investing and look for new opportunities in the South African economy, particularly in the energy sector. South Africa is blessed with abundant or rich sunshine, wind, and green hydrogen resources. Chinese enterprises have a comparative advantage compared to traditional Western companies. First, your investment in research and innovation has produced cutting-edge technologies in the new energy and technologies that can help us to repurpose our current power station to reduce emissions. Two, your modern technologies are advanced yet more affordable to developing countries such as South Africa and making them to be within the reach of most South Africans. And three, your enterprises often come with innovative financial backing that does not crowd out our national financial resources. Ladies and gentlemen, let us forge ahead, cooperate, and work for a win-win business exchanges for the betterment of the people of our nations. I wish this conference a great success. I thank you.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Siyabonga Cwele. Again, just highlighting the 25 years of diplomatic relations experience between South Africa and China, and also enjoying mutual trust, and obviously looking at calling each other friends and comrades, perhaps looking at addressing some of the issues going forward, including issues of bridging the gap between the digital divide, ensuring that there is a just energy transition, as well as adapting for skills of the future. Again, thank you very much, Ambassador Cwele, for that keynote speech. All right, so without further delay, I'd like to now welcome for his keynote speech the Minister of Department of Public Enterprises, Minister Pravin Gordhan. He's a politician, he's an anti-apartheid activist, and of course has held various ministerial positions in the Cabinet of South Africa. On that note, welcome, Minister.
Ni hao, good morning, Sanbonani, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here with my colleague, Minister Ramakopa. Both of us are going to be marriage counselors today. We want to marry Chinese business and South African business, and there's no fees involved in this as well. But having said that, let me pay my respects to Mr. Zeng. Thank you for the big delegation. Next time you will come with a whole plane load, not just half a plane load to South Africa. To Ambassador Cwele, who was a very kind host to us when we were in China a few weeks ago, and to, of course, the hardworking Ambassador Chen, who's always come up with very creative ideas about how South Africa and China can work together. Mine is just to give you a quick overview of some of the issues that impact upon you as business, but more importantly on the energy politics, if you like, that is undergoing change and very fast-moving change in the world today, and indeed on our own continent. Africa still remains very energy poor, as we know, but the flip side of that coin is that it provides huge opportunities to branch out from South Africa into the rest of the continent, use South Africa as a manufacturing base, and to build relationships with other countries on the continent, which I'm sure our Chinese colleagues are doing as well. But climate change and the lack of energy security, as we all know, impacts upon households, it impacts upon our economies, and it can result in all sorts of geopolitical issues as well. But at the same time, the world is indeed, as has been pointed out, undergoing very fast changes as far as the energy situation is concerned. However, as those changes take place, we need to be very mindful of not just the energy part of the energy transition, but also the just part of the energy transition. And that is something that I saw in China a few weeks ago, where, at least on the logistics side, but certainly on the energy side as well, too many operations were actually happening without any human beings in sight. And it's something that South Africans and Africans need to be exposed to, that one of the consequences of the kind of transitions that we are undergoing is the impact on workers, the impact on current businesses, and the manner in which we manage the just part of the just energy transition as each of our societies. And our first opportunity in South Africa is as we undergo those changes at the Komati Power Station, but subsequently others as well. Equally important is the fact that each country has to take its own circumstances into account as it begins to plan its journey along the energy transition. And in doing so, ensure that it has the right kind of institutions in place that can manage the energy transition. In South Africa's case, since 2019, we have been undergoing changes, which I'm sure the CEO of Eskom will share with you, in restructuring the utility into a generation company, a transmission company, and a distribution company. Each of the three provides interesting opportunities for different types of businesses in relation to cooperation, joint ventures, public-private partnerships, and investments, as Mr. Hussain pointed out earlier on as well. But while we look at the just energy transition in South Africa, we need to be very mindful of the world today and the kind of dynamics that are unfolding today, particularly in respect of the geopolitics that we are experiencing, which I'm sure our two leaders discussed last Friday when they had this exchange over the telephone. But the new geopolitics, apart from the business side of it, must also require of us, both in the People's Republic of China and in South Africa, new approaches to be developed so that we have a greater sense of independence, a greater sense of sovereignty, and each of our countries are able to stand on their own 2 feet, so to speak, with mutual support from our friends in different parts of the world, and in this particular instance, from the People's Republic of China. And through this process, we must overcome the energy disparity that I spoke about earlier on, the manner in which each country takes its own circumstances into account in planning the decarbonization journey. South Africa has certainly done so at COP26 in terms of the nationally declared contribution, but it's something that we need to constantly revise, constantly monitor, and constantly change should the circumstances require us to change as we go forward. But the big divide in the current geopolitics still remains the divide between rich and poor, between developed and underdeveloped countries or developing countries. And that applies, ladies and gentlemen, also to the field of technology as well. There are many countries that are endowed with superior technology, superior ability to innovate around energy and related issues, but then use that for their own leverage as opposed to the kind of cooperation that we are trying to generate at this conference today. So how we compete with each other, but also how we cooperate with each other, becomes quite crucial in the context of what is unfolding in the world around us. And the manner in which the energy conversation actually occurs later this year when the COP meets at Dubai and tries to formulate yet another, if you like, platform of agreement and consensus amongst different countries. Our own transition in South Africa has to move from the reality that we are largely coal-based. 80% of our energy comes from coal, although there is, as you will experience for the rest of today, a very fast developing industry as far as renewables are concerned, but other forms of energy, including gas as well, which I'm sure my colleague will talk about. And the transition which is going to occur between 2023 and 2050 has to take coal into account, has to take renewables into account, and I'm sure by the time we get to 2040, when I think looking at the bald heads around me, not many of us might be around, but I'm sure Minister Ramaphosa will certainly be there. We're going to see changes in the world that we will have to accommodate and create a level of adaptability that's going to enable us to still achieve the goals that we've set out to overcome the challenges of climate change on the planet as a whole. There are many changes that are happening in South Africa which are going to make investment more friendly, which are going to create new opportunities for innovation. And so it's not just the finished product that we should exchange amongst ourselves, but also the intellectual capital that goes with it as well. And the manner in which our research institutions work with each other, our innovation institutions work with each other, and how our businesses begin to create the right kind of environment for cooperation amongst themselves. On the regulatory side, there's a number of changes, the lifting of the 100, or first 1 megawatt, then 10 megawatt, then 100 megawatt, and then there's no megawatts that's holding us up in terms of our ceiling. Secondly, legislative changes that will change the structure of the electricity industry in South Africa, together with the changes that will be happening and are currently happening within Eskom itself in creating an independent systems operator and a transmission company. And I just got a message from the head of distribution in Eskom that he's in Rome looking at how distribution works and what some of the European companies have to offer as far as distribution at a municipal level will be concerned as well. Of course, all of this means that huge amounts of money need to be found to extend the transmission grid way beyond where it is currently, but also to overcome some of our own challenges, which we need to be frank about, and that is a culture of, let's call it partial payment, which impacts upon the sustainability of the various institutions that we have to work with as far as energy is actually concerned. So what we have, ladies and gentlemen, is a wide variety of possibilities in terms of cooperation at a business level available in South Africa, from public-private partnerships to private investments, to public investments as well, which can often act as the right kind of trigger as we take the journey from 2023 to 2050. And all of that is something that you will discuss, I'm sure, during the course of the day. Transmission expansion is a crucial task that we understand we have. The transmission company is already, if you like, at a functional level in place. There are certain processes that need to be concluded. I was with the Eskom board yesterday looking at some of those issues. But transmission also offers huge opportunities both for South African companies and overseas companies to join South African companies in expanding the grid, in making sure that we move, and I often use this Ambassador Chen as an example. We have too many regulations in South Africa. So my frequent reference point is, can we move Chinese style, please? So that we move faster, we move with a greater sense of urgency in South Africa. So if you can leave that vaccine behind in South Africa as you go back to China, Mr. Singh, the vaccine of urgency, the vaccine of getting things done quickly, so that we can create the right level of optimism, both amongst our own population, but amongst those that are interested in working with us as well, whether it's in respect of generation, transmission, or distribution as well. So there are many changes that are going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, both at an institutional level, but also in terms of sources of energy and the kind of investments that are going to be actually required. And all of those, I think, create important opportunities for the People's Republic and South Africa to cooperate in a very constructive way. And we hope that by the time the two colleagues from Cabinet, Minister Ramakopa and I, finish our addresses, we can get you into the marriage counseling rooms. And just one correction for the organizers, you keep referring to brothers. There's a lot of sisters around here as well. So and on that gender-friendly note, thank you very much and welcome to South Africa.
Thank you, Minister Pravin Gordhan. Minister of Public Enterprise. It says I mustn't summarize, but I think I'm just going to give a quick elevator speech, 30 seconds. Just some of the key points from that keynote address, looking at issues that have obviously impacted business in South Africa and in the continent. Where obviously Africa remains energy poor, so just really highlighting that there needs to be a just energy transition, which is happening between 2023 and 2050. Whilst in the context of a macro environment where we're seeing shifting dynamics on a geopolitical landscape, so it's important that countries maintain their sovereignty and their independence, but foster mutual cooperation and support. So again, overcoming energy disparity, continuously monitoring, also looking at innovative ways, and moving with urgency, all under a unique South African context. I hope I got that right, 30 seconds later. Thank you, Minister Pravin, for that. All right, so up next, we have a keynote speech by the Minister in the Presidency responsible for electricity, Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. He is obviously also served as the Minister of Tshwane from 2010 to 2016. Minister Ramokgopa holds a number of academic qualifications, including a VSc Civil Engineering from the University of Durban, Westville. It's now called, the campus is now of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. He also holds a Master's of Public Administration from the University of Pretoria and a Master of Business Leadership from UNISA. Minister Ramokgopa, welcome. It's over to you.
Thank you very much. Oh, no, thank you very much, Program Director. Let me join Minister Gordhan in just thanking Mr. Shao and your esteemed delegation for coming over to South Africa to cement commercial relationships with South African players here, and we hope that you'll contribute immensely to the resolution of the energy crisis that is confronting us today. And just to thank Eunice for the work that you are doing, just being a fulcrum in aggregating all of our efforts in government to ensure that we were able to take opportunities that are presented in this instance by the Chinese market. And also to thank Mr. Luang Zhang, the president of SACITA, and Dr. Twele, Ambassador Twele, for having graced us here and just sharing a perspective of how we see the relationship evolving over a period of time. And our excellent friend, the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to South Africa, Ambassador Sheng, thank you very much for continuing to cement the fraternal relationships between the two countries, and also pressuring solidarity with us during a very difficult period. So we want to express our most sincere appreciation. Just to indicate that Minister Gordhan has framed, if you like, the political economy of electricity and energy in particular. And you would have noticed that our position as South Africa, as articulated by Minister Gordhan, is undergirded by a need to ensure that there's energy sovereignty that is achieved by South Africa. Of course, in the context of our decarbonization agenda, the cadence of that decarbonization will be a function of our own domestic needs, as Minister Gordhan has indicated. So Minister Gordhan and I have agreed, he's mapped the political economy. I'm going to give you the details now of the manifestations of, if you like, the decarbonization agenda and the kind of work that we are doing to ensure that we are able to achieve energy security and energy sovereignty in the country. I'm using a presentation because some of the things I'll be saying are a bit more graphic so that you are able to consume them and understand better what is it that we're doing. So sometime last year, the President, about June of last year, the President unveiled the Energy Action Plan, which is our comprehensive articulation and response to the energy crisis that is facing the country, just to ensure that the generation is able to match demand and also is able to fuel the kind of growth that we're envisaging. Those of you who are familiar with the South African environment is that our preeminent planning framework in the country is a national development plan. It's an articulation, long-range horizon in relation to the aspirational targets, how we see development evolving in the country. And somewhere in there, it also makes the point that for us to be able to achieve those aspirational targets, the economy must grow by 5.5% year on year, so that we are able to achieve things like universal access, good quality healthcare, the kind of educational outcomes that we want. The economy has to grow by 5.5 year on year. And of course, one of the major structural constraints in our ability to grow the economy at the desired rate is electricity. So the President unveiled the Energy Action Plan. It's got 5 major outcomes. The first one is about fixing ESCOM, improving the energy availability factor, essentially the reliability and the efficiency of the 84 or 81 installed units at the ESCOM. And Eunice has made the point that we're beginning to see marginal yet significant improvements. And that's why we're sitting today as we speak now. There's no load shedding, of course. We're introducing it much later in the day. And this is the work that was started mid last year. Minister Gordhan has been driving it, and of course has handed over the baton to me to ensure that, of course, as a collective, we are able to accelerate the improvement of the energy availability factor. And then the second outcome there is to enable private sector investment. So Eunice and Minister Gordhan has made the point that there's been significant reforms on the generation side. We have removed the cap with regards to embedded generation. All you need to do is to register with our energy regulator, NERSA, they have to know about the project so that the site of that project, and of course the system operator, once the project is on stream, also a side of the megawatts that are generated by the respective projects. So these are essentially embedded generation interventions. They're behind the meter interventions, so there's no cap that we're introducing. And as the minister has indicated, we've got about 13 gigawatts of pipeline of healthy projects coming from, ranging from energy-intensive users to small-scale energy users. And this is where we see a pristine opportunity for outfits like yourselves to participate in that space. And then the third area is around accelerating the procurement of new energy sources on the generation side. So in addition to improving the performance of the installed units, in ESCOM we want to create other sources of generation. So hitherto ESCOM was a monopoly, henceforth ESCOM is going to be a dominant market player in on the generation side. So of course we're introducing other players. Just now in July, we'll be going out to market. We are going to procure about 5,000 megawatts of a combination of PV and solar. We'll be doing 1,200 megawatts of battery storage. We'll be doing 3,000 megawatts of gas, and then we'll be importing about 1,000 megawatts from neighboring countries. We have done that yesterday with Mozambique. We'll be getting the first megawatts. The point I'm making here is to illustrate that we're beginning to build an aggressive pipeline of renewable energy projects. And I guess that's where you begin as market players to see those opportunities. And then the fourth one is around rooftop solar. So I'll talk a bit about that in the presentation, just the technical details of rooftop solar. So what we are attempting to do is to ensure that we are able to benefit from the total roof surface that we have in the country. We want to transform households from being energy consumers to energy generators. Of course, in the process of doing that, you are essentially introducing a distributed generation in the country. And for us to be able to achieve the kind of ambitious targets we have set for ourselves, it's important that we've got the reliability of supply, both PV, battery, and inverters. We have introduced a number of incentives. The Minister of Finance has introduced incentives for households to roll out rooftop solar. We're also learning from the experiences of some of the countries in the world. Vietnam is an excellent example. Over a period of 12 months, they've been able to add an additional 9.5 gigawatts to the grid. So now they are sitting with a different problem. Generation is far exceeding demand. I hope we could be sitting with that problem. But I'm sure with this resolution of the problem, we'll get to a stage where we are generating more than what we consume, and of course we are going to support the South African economy. Minister Godani has spoken about the fifth outcome of the energy action plan is about the reform agenda, dismembering Eskom into 3 independent companies: generation, transmission, and distribution. And then there's work, like I said, that we are doing, essentially ensuring that we are able to reduce, if you like, the unplanned capability loss factor, essentially improving the efficiency of the Eskom power plant. I've spoken about those. When we get into winter, just reduce your planned maintenance so that you've got additional megawatts on the grid without undermining philosophy maintenance. So it's important that we are able to safeguard this unit. And then you can see that, of course, the weather has been very kind to us. We are not seeing the kind of demand that we had projected over close to 34,000 megawatts. And in addition to the improvements that we are making, demand is not as aggressive as we had anticipated. And that's why we are sitting at lower stages of load shedding. And then there are issues we are doing to improve the open cycle gas turbines, just get them on load for about 21% of the time. Remember, we're doing all of these things to save the South African economy. I mean, the South African Reserve Bank makes the point that the South African economy has truncated by about 2.1 percentage point, 1 quarter to the other as a result of load shedding. We are losing about 300 billion rands to the GDP as a result of load shedding. An inordinate amount of people are losing jobs as a result of load shedding. So we are doing all of these things to ensure that we are able to lower the levels of load shedding and ultimately address and liquidate load shedding. And we are on track to doing that. That's the point that we are simply trying to illustrate there. Now let's get to the point. So you can see here that as a result of the reforms that Minister Godani has referred to, we've got a healthy pipeline of embedded generation projects. So you can see, I mean, just the month of March alone, the number of projects that have been registered is about 2,400 megawatts. And you can see that the Manhattan, if you like, those spikes, the graph continues to grow. The point we are making is that there's an elevated appetite, almost an insatiable appetite by private sector to ensure that they are able to introduce a number of projects for consideration, registration by NERSA, to ensure that we are able to decarbonize at our own rate, meeting our own domestic and sovereign requirements. And then one of the issues that illustrate the pace at which we are rolling out, we are introducing new projects. One of the measures is what we call the budget codes, so just for Eskom to give you permission and also, if you like, grant you access to the grid. You can see now, as we speak, that I mean the total number of projects that are seeking Eskom business code is over, I think it's about 11,000 or so megawatts. And then a significant number of them have already secured, issued the budget codes, so over 4,000 megawatts. So you can see all of these things are renewable energy projects. So the point I'm trying to illustrate here is that we have created sufficient conditions, as Minister Godani has indicated. The kind of reforms that we have introduced are beginning to yield fruit. And then there's an issue that requires our collective attention, I think, from the grid side. So it's one thing to roll out a pipeline of a renewable energy project, but for as long as we are not able to evacuate the electrons, the economy is not going to get the benefit of this reform agenda, the investments by the private sector, because they must be connected to the grid. That's the only way that you are going to succeed in ensuring that you benefit from additional generation. So what we are trying to show you here, you can see that the significant number, just 2024 alone, the number of commercial projects that's the embedded generation side. So for own consumption, are going to likely come at about, we are going to connect over 3,000 megawatts of these projects. You can see already we have connected close to 1,600 megawatts. And of course, with the reforms, we expect that there's more that are going to come on stream. But the area that we want to resolve quickly is this thing called grid capacity. So it's one thing to have these projects. You can generate the electrons, but the next thing is to evacuate those electrons. And you can see here, so if you had to do what we call an irradiation atlas, essentially a map of where's the good quality radiation levels in the country, is sitting in the Northern Cape. If you had to do a wind atlas in the country, really is your coastal cities or provinces of the Western Cape, Northern Cape, and the Eastern Cape. That's where you are going to get the best wind speeds, and therefore the opportunity for you to be able to exploit wind as a fuel source. But the problem we're having here is that the areas where we have good quality radiation, the Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, you can see all of those. We either don't have grid capacity or are running out of grid capacity. And that's why it's important that when we go out to market, we are able to match, if you like, the location of this renewable energy sources to where there's grid capacity access. So Eskom has done the numbers in their own computation. We'll need about 210 billion rands for us to both strengthen the grid and expand the lines. And that's the work, as Minister Godani has indicated, the transmission company will be seized with that responsibility. So the point I'm trying to illustrate is that when we release the next bid windows, the 5,000 megawatts of wind and also PV, we are going to make sure that we mesh them in the areas or the provinces where there's existing grid capacity so that we're able to get these projects online as soon as possible. This, for me, is one of the most exciting pieces of slides. Essentially, it's information that begins to illustrate the amount of appetite that is sitting with the private sector. There's been a survey that was done by Eskom together with the South African Association of Wind Energy. What they were trying to do was to go from one project developer to the other just to get a sense of the amount of megawatts that they want to bring on stream, the location of those projects. So as I speak to you now, there's a pipeline of about 66 gigawatts, 66 gigawatts of, 66 gigawatts of wind and solar projects. And you can see there we have mapped them in the country. I did say to you that we have a problem here in the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. We have a problem in the Northern Cape, and then we've got sufficient grid capacity there. So it means that the greater proportion of these projects, 66 gigawatts, that are located in these areas of the Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, the Free State, where we've got grid capacity, those are the ones that can come on stream as quickly as possible. So I'm trying to say, Ambassador Shin, that there's vast opportunities that exist. So 66 gigawatts that I'm talking about, that is immediately available. Of course, will resolve the issues of grid access. And then Minister Godani made the point that for our part, we are trying to do everything possible to make sure that we truncate the process from request for proposal to financial close and also to development. And of course, the state has got a very powerful instrument, and as an instrument of policy making. So we have a monopoly of determining policy. We don't do that in partnership with other people who have been elected to determine policy. And that's why we are able to say that we have done an analysis of the kind of legislative impediments that undermine the speed with which this project could be coming on stream. And some of those include the issues around the environmental impact assessment. So what we are trying to show you is that for those solar projects, wind projects that are not in areas of significant sensitivity from an ecological point of view, environmental point of view, issues of biodiversity. So what we are trying to do is that those projects must be exempt from the EIA. So essentially eliminating the improvement that we have made. Of course, now we've moved from 150 days for the approval of the EIA, your basic assessment, the issues around environmental emissions licensing were sitting at 90 days, but we still want to do away with the 90 days to the extent that it doesn't compromise the issues of biodiversity and the environment. And then we'll advocate that those must have exemptions. And then we're also going to use other pieces of legislation like the Infrastructure Development Act to designate these projects to be what we call strategic integrated projects. Once they get that designation, it means that all these approvals must be done within a period not more than 57 days. So this is just really an illustration of that which we are doing to ensure that we are able to address the issues of licensing so that we are able to truncate the process. We are going to do the same again with regards to the issues of water use licenses. So we're going to notice a gazette that requires the point that issues around the PV and battery storage projects, of course, should be those applications should be considered, and an answer must be given within 90 days. So I'm not prescribing what that answer is. It might be declined, it might be approved, but the point we're simply making is that it should be within 90 days. Of course, ESCOM is doing everything possible. You remember the issues around the budget code, just saying to you that, yes, we'll be able to give you grid access, because if you don't have issues around grid access, you don't have issues around licensing and permitting, the project can't get to financial close. So the point is to try and truncate that process to get it to financial close. And we're doing everything possible as government to ensure that we're able to build a healthy pipeline of projects going forward. And then as I conclude, like I said, part of the resolution of the energy problem is not only addressing the generation side. So remember, I told you when I started working with ESCOM, Caleb and the team there, led by the board, the chair, Mr. Makwana, is to ensure that we improve the energy availability factor. I had shared with you some of the things that are being done there. And then I have shared with you on the issues on the generation side, what we are doing to get these 66 gigawatts of projects on stream, the kind of relaxations we are introducing or anticipating or in relation to or contemplating in relation to truncating the process. So that deals with the generation side. But we must do something to deal with the demand side. Now I'm dealing with the demand side. There are two sides to the equation. For us to be able to balance the grid, you must ramp up generation, you must reduce demand without undermining households' ability to meet their daily needs, without compromising business, commercial and profit motives, but you need to balance the grid so by bringing down demand. So we're doing both. We're addressing the generation side and we're also addressing the demand side. So on the demand side, there's a few things that we know. We know that households at peak, they consume about 16.5%, or households in general consume about 16.5% of installed capacity. At peak, it goes up to 35%. And if you had to examine that 35%, anything between 30 to 50% of that 35% household peak consumption is on the account of geysers. And that's why it's important that we must have a dedicated program to ensure that we're able to address the issues of geysers. So, and that's why we want to replace some of your electric geysers with solar water geysers. So what we know is that the statistic is not as impressive, that we're working with the insurance companies. For every 10 insurance claims with regards to the replacement of geysers, only one is replaced by a solar water geyser. And in fact, we think we can do more there. And we're working with the insurance companies and also designing a financial instrument that will make it possible for people to replace a damaged electric geyser with a solar water geyser. We are going to get the benefit on the grid, on the demand side. And of course, our decarbonization agenda will take root. And then we also want to address this for every 1,000 households that they install a medium-size system, that's a solar system, we are able to remove about, on average, 5 megawatts. So it means that for us to reduce one stage of load shedding, to be able to get an additional 1,000 megawatts of savings, we need to ensure that we have 200,000 households as a minimum to be able to install this mechanism. Like I said, what is the structural problem there? The structural problem is that the country does not have sufficient PV solutions to resolve this problem. And that's why we are looking to the East China to help us to resolve that problem with regards to the availability of equipment to allow us to address that problem. I've spoken about the solar water heaters. One of the biggest programs that we're working on, we should come into the market in the next month or so. We are retrofitting government buildings. We have about 37 million square meters of property that is owned by government. We are going to introduce energy-saving solutions, not just electricity, but also water. It's a massive program, and we think that we can save about 4,000. We consume about 4,000 gigawatt hours of electricity per annum, and we want to install solar water geysers. Of course, the solution must come with a financing instrument, if you like, a total solution to help us to retrofit government buildings. And we are confident that we can be able to achieve about 320 megawatts of renewable energy programs that can be procured on an annual basis. We are working with our friend, and thank you very much for the assistance that we are getting from Ambassador Xi with regards to the kind of interventions we are making. So the court has made a ruling that we must make sure that if you like, critical infrastructure, hospitals, schools, clinics, police stations have got uninterrupted supply of electricity. For our part, we have done a computation and a modeling. We know we've got about 4,000 public clinics, 400 public hospitals, 40 private clinics. We have mapped them in the country. We also have an appreciation of what is the consumption per bed on average at the hospital. It ranges between anything between 43 to 92 kilowatt hour of energy consumption per day per bed in a hospital. And for using that, we're able to model what are the energy requirements. So what do we know? Just to use an example of hospitals, there's about 73 or 6 hospitals have been exempted from load shedding, but you still have about 137 hospitals ranging from small to big. But for purposes of making the point here, we have done a computation. If all these 137 hospitals that are not exempted from load shedding were to find an energy solution to ensure that there's uninterrupted supply, what will be the cost to the fiscus? We will need about 89 million rands to buy generators for these hospitals, but we'll need on an annual basis about 665 million rands to support the diesel that is required to power these hospitals. But if we were to use the battery and energy storage solutions to support these 137 hospitals, assuming that the load is about 200 kilowatt of load, will need about 1.3 billion rands to support all of that. If you do a combination of battery and solar, essentially not charging the battery with Eskom power, this is what this option is about. Option 2 will need about 1.8 billion rands. And if you are to assume that these are large hospitals, so essentially we are giving the range. So that's the range, assuming that all of these are large hospitals. Large in this instance, they consume about on load, one megawatt on load. To buy the generators to support all of this, we'll need 411 million rands. If we were to do battery storage alone and then rely on Eskom to charge these batteries, we'll need 5.7 billion rands. And if we do a combination of solar and the PV, we need 8.3 billion rands. If you were to do the return on investment, you will see that if you go this solution, we should be able to get our return on investment, I think, over a period of 3 years. So we have done this computation just to illustrate that the point we are making is there's a science involved in resolving load shedding. You don't just by decree call a press conference and that there's going to be an end of load shedding, or organize people and march and think there will be load shedding. There's a science that underpins the resolution of this problem. And all we are saying is that there's opportunities, battery storage, of course, and inverters from DC to AC, and also solar solutions going into the future. And in conclusion, we want to say to the People's Republic of China, we are extremely grateful for the support you are giving to the South African people, the kind of generosity, the helping hand you are extending. We have gone to all other embassies. You are the only ones who have come back to us and say, we'll assist you without any condition. We want to thank the People's Republic of China and people for the solidarity and the camaraderie that we have illustrated over a period of time, and we are looking forward to resolving this problem. So thank you very much, and we wish the conference a success going forward. Thank you very much.
Minister Ramaphosa says this summary is for 20 marks, so let's see how much I score out of 20, Minister. Thank you for that comprehensive keynote speech. You obviously spoke to the decarbonisation agenda to achieve South Africa's energy security and sovereignty, and really just highlighted the Energy Action Plan with the priorities to achieve economic growth, seeing 5.5% year on year. So that priorities will obviously focus on fixing Eskom, private investment, accelerating procurement, as well as unleashing investments in rooftop solar PV and transforming the energy sector at large to achieve energy security. And then I also gathered that you highlighted the breakdown of the costs to the fiscus and also the impact that policy and regulatory reform is going to have across the value chain for the vast opportunities available. Did I get 20 out of 20? Thank you. Another round of applause for the Minister. All right, so to round off the keynote address speech at this hour, I'd like to welcome Ambassador to the People's Republic of China to South Africa, Ambassador Cheng Xiaodong. We understand that Ambassador Cheng Xiaodong is serving as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the People's Republic of China to the Republic of South Africa since 2020. And he's also served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the People's Republic of China to the Republic of Singapore. His Excellency Ambassador Chen has always been actively moving forward with China-South Africa bilateral relations, advancing practical cooperation across the board, and especially implementing the common understanding between the two heads of state. His Excellency has been dedicated with concrete actions to advance South Africa's economic recovery and development at large, and today's New Energy Conference marks yet another major measure that has been undertaken under Ambassador Cheng Xiaodong in looking at initiatives perhaps to bring tangible benefits to South Africa. So on that note, Ambassador Cheng Xiaodong, welcome. Please do join us.
Your Honorable Pravin Gordhan, Minister of Public Enterprises, Your Honorable Dr. Kosinzo Ramaphosa, Minister of Electricity, Your Excellency Siyabonga Kwele, South Africa Ambassador to China, Your Honorable MP, Ms. Zhang Xiaomei, Your Excellency Zudwa Lali, Acting Deputy Director General of DERCO, Honorable CCCME Executive Vice President, Mr. Zheng Chao, Mr. Yunus Hosen, Head of Invest SA, and Honorable MOFCOM DDG, Mr. Yuan Ning, and SACITA President, Mr. Chen Nongjian. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. 大家上午好. It's my great pleasure to meet with all of you at today's conference. I thank Mr. Gordon, Mr. Ramahopa, Ambassador Huilai, and colleagues for your wonderful remarks. I thank our organizer, the CCCME, and the South Africa China Economic and Trade Association, and Invest SA for your great preparations. I also thank the sector association from both countries and the over 170 new energy companies from your strong support. At present, even though South Africa is experiencing unprecedented challenges of power shortage, we are glad to see that relevant efforts are seeing quite positive efforts. As South Africa's good brother, good friend, and good partner, China very much related to the challenges here, and we are ready to provide support to South Africa within our capacity. Our two countries now both have historical tasks of energy transition and sustainable economic development. It is therefore very timely for us to cooperate more in new energy investment, electricity power development, and the green and low carbon approach will be the future. Through today's conference, we want to implement the important common understanding of our two heads of states, President Xi Jinping and President Ramaphosa, to build a platform for information exchange and cooperation between enterprises and institutions in both countries. We want to mobilize more stakeholders to participate in South Africa's new energy industry, provide assistance for alleviating the power crisis, and inject new momentum into the practical cooperation between China and South Africa. It is my great pleasure to learn that Mr. Gordon had fruitful exchanges with relevant Chinese government department and energy enterprises during his recent visit to China. In a few days, Mr. Ramahopa will also lead a big delegation to visit China. I believe this visit will further promote our exchanges and cooperation in this field. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, this year marks 25th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and South Africa. During the past years, China-South Africa relations achieved significant development, and there have been fruitful practical cooperation across the board, which has brought tangible benefits for our two peoples. We have together set a fine example for China-Africa relations and South-South cooperation. Last Friday, President Xi Jinping and President Ramaphosa spoke on the phone. Our two heads of states agreed to further elevate China-South Africa relations and jointly build a high-level China-South Africa community with shared future. China is ready to work with South Africa to implement the consensus reached by our two presidents, promote exchanges and cooperation in various fields, and work for more results for our comprehensive strategic partnership so as to better achieve common development. Economic and trade cooperation has always been a key component of China-South Africa relations. China has been South Africa's largest trading partner for 14 years in a row. And South Africa has been China's biggest trading partner in Africa for 13 years straight. During the first 5 months of this year, our bilateral trade reached over $24 billion, up over 18% year on year. Among that number, South Africa export to China reached over $13 billion, which is up over 19% year on year. Our two countries also enjoy good cooperation in the investment. South Africa now is one of the largest investment destinations for Chinese enterprises in Africa. In April this year, more than 60 Chinese companies participated in South Africa's 5th investment conference and announced nearly 15 billion rand intended new investment. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, looking ahead, our relations enjoy new opportunities, and the renewable energy cooperation will become a new driver and highlight of our economic and trade cooperation. Right now, China is actively pursuing high-quality development at home. We are vigorously developing renewables, and China now leads the world in technology, finance resources, and human talents. China is now the world's leading country in terms of installed capacity of hydro, wind, and solar power. We produce more than half of all wind turbines and over 8% of all PV panels in the world. South Africa is also working on an ambitious just energy transition, which incorporates new energy as a means to resolve the power crisis and created a prosperous green economy. China and South Africa have common development aspirations and strong complementarities in new energies. We have what it takes to be reliable friends and a strong partner in each other's economic and social transformation and development. China is ready to work with all South Africa to take the opportunities provided by today's conference to encourage more companies in both countries to connect on new energy cooperation and jointly advance the green and sustainable development of both countries. First, strengthen policy communication for strong cooperation. Our two countries signed an MOU on energy cooperation as early as 2010. China is ready to maintain close communication with various South Africa departments, including public enterprises, electricity, mineral resources, and energy, as well as trade, industry, and competition. As a fellow BRICS member, South Africa actively participated in China's Belt and Road Initiative and the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation Mechanism. We believe we will strengthen communication with the South Africa side through bilateral and multilateral channels to stay updated on each other's energy policies, industrial development, and cooperation aspirations. That will help create favorable conditions for the companies of both countries to expand new energy cooperation. Second, further deliver projects to create new growth drivers. In recent years, many Chinese enterprises actively participated in South Africa wind and solar PV power projects. This not only provides stable power supply for the local community, but also creates massive jobs which are important for local socio-economic development. China will continue to support South Africa investment initiative and encourage strong Chinese enterprises to further contribute. Chinese companies will be encouraged to leverage technical, finance, and human resources advantages and advance cooperation with South Africa in wind and solar energy, energy storage, as well as power transmission and distribution. These efforts will see more projects implemented here and deliver more benefit to the local communities. Third, advance cooperation in technical training and improve professional capacity. It's a pleasure to see that the Chinese Energy Investment Corporation has already been in communication with ESCOM on electricity technologies. China State Grid will also send a team of experts to South Africa very soon to provide technical advice. China is ready to continue to send more technical experts here. We are ready to share more technical know-how with South Africa and provide more personnel training. We will encourage Chinese enterprises here to train more local professionals through the transfer of advanced technology and skills training. That we believe can assist South Africa in enhancing capacity of self-driving development in the new energy industry. Fourth, expand investment and finance cooperation, especially in green finance. Financial support is essential for energy transformation. China is one of the first countries to develop green finance. We are also the first country in the G20 to champion green finance. China is ready to strengthen green finance cooperation with South Africa. We are ready to share our experience and encourage Chinese stakeholders to provide strong finance support for key new energy projects here so as to contribute to strong Chinese solutions to South Africa's energy transition. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, a green economy and a sustainable development have become the global consensus, and our two countries enjoy key opportunities for stronger new energy cooperation. I hope that all our participants can make good use of the platform of this conference today to actively contribute wisdom, ideas, seek business opportunities, and secure more results for China-South Africa New Energy Cooperation. That will open up a new horizon for overall China-South Africa business cooperation and give a strong boost to a high-level China-South Africa community with a shared future. Last but not least, I wish today's conference a great success. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Chen, for those sentiments. Perhaps also looking at the energy transition and sustainable development between the two countries. We've obviously experienced friendly diplomatic relations for the past 25 years. It's also exciting to see how the mobilization for more players across the value chain. So thank you once again for those sentiments. Another round of applause. So I would just like to thank Ambassador Tsoele, as well as Minister Pravin Gordhan and Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, as well as Ambassador Chen for their keynote addresses. I'm told that we're going to take a quick break for about 35 minutes. The refreshments are outside. There are 7 exhibitionists that you're welcome to interact with. And also we encourage you to seize the opportunity perhaps to deepen any other relations. All right, so staying with this green energy topic, we are now going to call on our next speaker, Caleb Kasim, who, as we know, is the acting Group Chief Executive of ESCOM. Welcome.
Thank you, Liesl. Good afternoon to the distinguished guests. I guess probably standing here, it's a difficult job, but I think I'm feeling much more prouder to be up here. If I look at the load shedding over the last 2 weeks, the team is doing very well, and that's keeping a bit of a smile on my face and those of the Eskom colleagues. But I think it's also difficult coming after both ministers. They've covered many of those topics, and although I have a speech and I'm trying to balance technology using my phone, and I've got the backup of the hard copy, so I'll improvise. But I also want to give the conference an insight into Eskom, where we are, where we're going, etc., because we know how critical Eskom is to the economy and the livelihoods of the 61 million people in South Africa. So, distinguished guests, firstly, it's a pleasure to be here representing Eskom at this China-South Africa New Energy Investment Cooperation Conference. I think in our experience as Eskom, we have a long partnership with China on the funding side, on utilizing their skills, and we conduct a number of projects with various Chinese companies. So it is a privilege to address all of you here at this conference. And importantly, I think if I link it to Minister Ramakgopa's speech, in terms of the Energy Action Plan, the first item is to fix Eskom generation performance in terms of that EAF. And our focus at this point in time, from the board, from myself, and with the new appointments, is really to focus on the Eskom generation energy availability factor. The second thing is to, again, provide the confidence from where I am that the system operator in South Africa, they have all the skills. There isn't going to be a blackout. I'm convinced that we will manage that with the skills and the necessary interventions and control measures we have in place. And last but not least, to get through this winter, trying to maximize stages of load shedding, not more than stage 6. I think the way it's going, I'm crossing my fingers that at peaks it's stage 4, and in the mornings may this no load shedding or stage 2 load shedding continue. But I think that is also, I must give credit to the new leader of generation, Becky Namalo. He's doing very well. But at the end of the day is, as generation, we need to utilize the skills of partners. China is building what? An Eskom worth of coal stations every year, and the skills they have in the coal environment, those are the skills we are looking to utilize as South Africa. But more importantly, as even Minister Gordon has said, and we all know about this, from adding megawatts to the grid, improving the capacity to the transmission grid and to the distribution grid is critical. We need to work with organizations like Mr. Lukai has indicated, and importantly, we've got very good relationships and agreements with State Grid of China with regard to the transmission enterprise. So those are areas that we need to work together with our Chinese colleagues, but more importantly, it's as the minister has indicated in the recent visit, China has come to the party to put assistance and provide assistance to South Africa in this important need of help without any conditions. So that's greatly appreciated from Eskom as well as the South African government. Where we are, I think it's important that at the end of the day, we will try to get better performance out of our generation fleet. With minimal investment, we want the existing plants to continue to operate because security of supply is far more important at this point in time. But it does mean, distinguished guests, that at a point in time, these stations will come to the end of their lives. and then they need to be repurposed into another form, because communities depend on the livelihoods of these coal stations, and that is why as Eskom, as part of our strategy, we fully adhere to the just energy transition strategy into renewable technologies, substantially solar and wind, coupled with the transition fuel of gas into the future as the country moves forward. But this aligns to the bigger policy of the integrated resource plan, and Eskom plays a part with regard to that policy and that environment. As Minister Ramokgopa has indicated, going forward in South Africa, Eskom's generation contributions will reduce over time, but more importantly, it does mean there's opportunities, as we've seen in the various bid windows, for the independent power producers to come into the generation sector, and in the removal of the caps. So that is critical going forward, but most importantly, we need to sort out the transmission capacity, and working with the ministers and government, we need to ensure we accelerate that, like Minister PG has indicated. If we can take that vaccine of urgency and put it into Eskom and South Africa, that is going to be critical. But building on these relationships and these strategic partners, let's not reinvent the wheel. If you look at how China implements and executes implementation in an accelerated manner, that is something that we need to take on board and learn as Eskom and South Africa, and then I think that will go a long way for the country. From where I'm sitting, our bigger worry is once we get through this hurdle on the generation side and unlocking our own performance plus adding megawatts, we don't want the stumbling block to South Africa's security of supply on electricity to be the grid. And that's a key component that we need to address. And I think in line with some of the models that were indicated into the various ways of doing construction and transmission lines, many countries have looked at other models around partnerships. I know as part of the National Treasury Debt Relief Bill, there is a element for Eskom to look into public-private partnerships when it also gets to the transmission sector, and that is something we are working with in conjunction with government. So colleagues, I think first and foremost, from an Eskom perspective, let's look to utilize the skills that China can offer to help deal with security of supply. There are experts that State Grid are going to bring to South Africa and Eskom in July and August that we'll utilize, and the rest of the support that we do get from China. But importantly, it's very impressive, as the earlier speakers have indicated, the amount of renewables that China have put on the grid in their own country. And going forward as South Africa, as you replace some 20 gigawatts of baseload capacity at a ratio of 1:3, you would need about 60 to 70 gigs of renewable supply to generate the same amount of energy, more importantly, coupled with the battery storage requirements to balance that grid. So we look forward to working with our colleagues and our friends from China in this journey going forward. The electricity industry is not a one-year industry. It's a long-term industry. But most importantly, you need to have a plan at the highest level where everyone's aligned to it, and then you need to implement according to that plan. Like any long-term plan, there's going to be some deviations, but let's make sure that the destination doesn't change. The struggle that we find sometimes in South Africa is that we need that alignment that everyone knows to which destination we're moving as a country and as an industry, and that is where it's above my pay grade. That's where the ministers must align on that aspect. I think in terms of our just energy transition, we started with Kamati as our flagship project, and then we will proceed as we shut down the coal-fired power stations of Andrina, of Arnott, of Camden, as and when required. But where we are now, we've also revisited our trajectory as Eskom. If we can invest minimal expenditure on a power plant like Camden that's running very well, there's no need to shut it down now when the country needs the megawatts and the benefit it gives to the economy. So that's where we are as Eskom. I have support from the board, from the ministers, and I'm confident that the changes and the momentum that we're seeing at Eskom and in generation, that is extremely positive. I don't want to leave you with any false messages here that we are out of the woods. It's still a difficult journey for Eskom and the country through winter. But as Kusile comes back online and as we deal with Kuberg as well on those long outages, I'm convinced and supported by government that as South Africa, when we get into next year, we're going to be in a far better position. But at the end of the day, I think working with colleagues and having those strategic partnerships with the People's Republic of China and all their entities can only bode well for South Africa and Eskom and this industry. But at the end of the day, they are partners. We must also rely on our own skills that we have in South Africa at Eskom and throughout the country. And what's important is the support we're getting from NECOM and the different skills through the Energy Council, working with one objective in mind. And as the President says, the most important thing is to stop load shedding as quick as possible. But before we stop it, we need to reduce the frequency and the intensity. And that is the focus that I have personally while I'm in this acting role. I definitely, on a personal basis, don't want to set any new records beyond stage 6 load shedding. So I wanted to definitely be below that. Colleagues, on behalf of Eskom, I thank you for the opportunity and for us to strengthen our relationships with China and all their companies across the industry. And we hope that this support that we do get and the skills and the investments they will bring into South Africa will accelerate the point at which we can get to a stable security of supply, a sustainable supply, and then more importantly, the transition towards renewable technologies for the country. Thank you for the opportunity.
Today, so thank you for that. Just some of the sentiments that that we garnered from you there. We heard that Long Young offers solutions, perhaps to design and development, as well as integration, construction, and implementation. So you really cover the value chain at large. And you also spoke about having a strong financing capability as well. So you're open to leveraging off the opportunities, as you've already worked with so many locals in training and development, and hope that it can just grow from here on too. So thank you for those sentiments. Another round of applause for Mr. Wang. All right, last but not least, for this part of the program, I'm going to welcome Chifularo Mashava, who's the CEO of City Power. She's going to be giving us her contribution as we perhaps take a look at the green energy component of this part of the show. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon to the representatives of the Government of the People's Republic of China, to the representative of the South African government. We had our ministers earlier on this morning, and to the ambassadors, the colleagues in the energy space, NERSA, ESCOM, distinguished guests. Thank you for having us as City Power today. Firstly, I'm going to talk about Johannesburg, a city of gold. The title City of Gold is due to the long and rich history of gold mining, which also created many other industries and saw an increase of workers coming throughout to Johannesburg. Now, at the core of the prominence of the mining industry is the availability of reliable power, and that's how we enter as City Power. Our responsibility is to really power the socio-economic transformation within the city. Now, the city of Johannesburg is proud of its former glory years, and it continues to offer several attractive aspects that appeal to residents and to businesses at large. And for now, I'd like to call out 4 of these attractive aspects. We are an economic hub as City of Johannesburg, and we continue to be the powerhouse within South Africa. And in order for that to happen, you need reliable power. Our vibrant economy provides employment and investment opportunities, making it a preferred destination for professionals and entrepreneurs. And we do not take that responsibility lightly as City Power. The second aspect is that of infrastructure and services. We boast modern infrastructure and a well-developed transportation network that connects the country and is also a corridor to the international community, both on the continent and also for other continents. We also offer a range of services, including healthcare facilities, educational institutions, shopping centers, cultural attractions that enhance the quality of the residents of our city. Thirdly, we are also about sports and recreation as a city. We offer a range of sporting facilities and recreational activities. We have hosted major events in our lifetime, the FIFA World Cup being one of those, the Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cup, and many golf tournaments. And the last one for me is entrepreneurship and innovation. And it's really why we are here. Johannesburg has a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem with a growing number of startups, incubators, and co-working spaces. The city fosters innovation and provides support for small and medium enterprises. And at City Power, we give opportunities to a number of those. We do have our challenges as City of Johannesburg. We've got some socioeconomic issues. And we can win through reliable power. Now, as a city, we are not without our challenges. We continue to wrestle with various socioeconomic issues, and we are addressing this. In our journey to ensure the delivery of energy services, we have embarked on an alternative energy strategy that seeks to contribute to the city's sustainability goals and further the Gauteng province agenda and the country's agenda. Our municipality, City of Johannesburg, is led by our executive mayor, Councillor Kabelo Gwamanda, and City Power, we are an entity of City of Johannesburg led by our MMC for Environment, Infrastructure Service Department, Councillor Jack Squaila. And they have been hard at work to address the energy crisis and cushion the impact of load shedding for our residents. We also recognize that we do not need to reinvent the wheel, and I think that has been said throughout the day. The China story is of significant interest to us, and we believe that we can take lessons to help us move forward with speed. China has made significant efforts to develop its economy by leveraging green energy and sustainable practices. And I'd like to mention a few that stand out for us as City Power. Renewable energy investments being one of those. We are aware that China has become the world's largest investor in renewable energy development and deployment technologies such as solar, wind, hydroelectric, and biomass. These investments have substantially increased renewable energy capacity, contributing to energy security and economic growth. Furthermore, we have read interesting reports of the wind farm in Namibia and floating solar farm on the Kariba Dam in Zimbabwe. Secondly, it's about manufacturing. China has emerged as a global leader in manufacturing renewable energy technologies. By promoting domestic manufacturing capabilities, China has created jobs and stimulated economic growth in the renewable energy sector. Chinese companies have become major producers of solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicles, as we also saw today. Thirdly, is green infrastructure development. China has invested significantly in green infrastructure projects, including high-speed rail networks, urban transportation systems, and smart cities. And then lastly, of course, electric vehicles, and that was also an issue of discussion today. This list is endless, but we ask the question, how can us, as City Power, as City of Johannesburg, benefit from a relationship with China? The City of Johannesburg can potentially benefit from China's successes in the green energy economy in several ways. Firstly, the issue of technology transfer. China has significantly advanced in renewable energy technologies, and Johannesburg can benefit from collaborations and partnerships with Chinese companies to access and adopt these technologies. Through technology transfer, the city can enhance its renewable energy infrastructure, we can improve on energy efficiency, and we can definitely reduce our carbon footprint. Secondly, we believe we can benefit through investment and financing. China has been a significant investor in green energy projects globally. The City of Johannesburg is an attractive destination for Chinese investment in renewable energy initiatives. Chinese financing can go a long way to provide the necessary capital for developing green infrastructure, creating jobs, stimulating economic growth, and enhancing the city's sustainability. Manufacturing and supply chains. Johannesburg can definitely leverage on China's manufacturing capabilities in the green energy sector. Number 4, knowledge sharing and capacity building. China's experience developing and implementing green energy policies and practices can provide valuable insights for Johannesburg. Through knowledge sharing initiatives, through training programs, and the exchange of best practices, the city can definitely benefit. And then lastly, we can definitely collaborate on research and development. We are aware that China has invested heavily on R&D, and by fostering these partnerships with Chinese research institutions and universities, Johannesburg can engage in joint R&D projects. City Power is exploring alternative sources of energy as we speak. At the moment, we are heavily reliant on Eskom, and we've heeded the call from Eskom that we all need to come together to contribute in this energy crisis. As a result of this, we've got our own 10-point plan as City Power that is geared to assist us to move us forward. Firstly, we are onboarding IPPs. We are happy to say that we've already issued our short-term power purchase procurement that attracted several bids, and we should be in the process of awarding those. And we are also working on our own journey to award 20-year power purchase agreement on various technologies as well. And we will be reaching out to the market. And we are clear that we'll definitely get favorable responses from the market. That's program number 1. Secondly, we are also installing rooftop PV systems. I think we saw those in the different presentations earlier on in terms of how it can assist and move all of us forward. We have started with installation in our own buildings. in terms of City of Johannesburg owned buildings. We are also investing in ripple relay systems. We saw earlier in the presentations when they were talking about the impact of geysers, the capacity that is required just to take care of the energy that we need for our geysers. We are investing in ripple relay systems so that we can be able to manage that and reduce the consumption. And we definitely welcome the intention for solar water geysers. We are also investing in energy efficiency systems. Furthermore, we are also investing in smart meter load limiting systems because we are of the view that technology can work for us. We are of the view that we can get our residents to participate by also limiting their own usage. We are also recommissioning, as we speak, our own open cycle gas turbines. We do have licenses to generate, and a couple of years back, we stopped with those, and now we're in the process of recommissioning those, and we are happy to say that we're looking forward to injecting 70 megawatts into the system. We've also looked into the issue of deploying microgrid systems. City of Johannesburg has a lot of informal settlements. And the informal settlements, unfortunately, are moving at a much faster pace than what the grid can accommodate. So we are looking into investing in microgrids so that we can guarantee access to energy for our people. We are also looking at the next market with regards to electric vehicles, and we're getting ourselves ready as a city to be able to support those. Lastly, we need our streets lit. We need the cars as they move on our roads for the streets to be lit. We need the spaces where our residents for the street to be lit. And it becomes a little bit complicated when there's load shedding because then the streets are dark. It is for that reason that our last program is really on the deployment of solar masts, which are the old Apollo lights as they're known in our townships. And we're happy to announce that as recent as last week, we launched this program, and most of the streets in our informal settlements are now lit with solar-powered high-mast lights. We are definitely encouraged with the support that we have received from Gauteng Provincial Government, as City of Johannesburg, as well as national government from the Ministry of Electricity, as well as DMRE. We've got very good working relationships with NERSA and with ESCOM, and we believe that just like it takes a village to raise a child, that this problem that we are facing now, if we come together as a collective, we can definitely succeed. On behalf of City Power, we do thank you for the opportunity to come today and engage with yourselves. I'll end it here, distinguished guests. I thank you.
The China-South Africa New Energy Investment and Cooperation Conference has come to an end, and it's been a day of deliberations and presentations from keynote speakers right through to potential investors. And the message is clear that South Africa has a need, it needs help, and China is prepared to give that assistance.